Hey friends, what's up? What if I told you that search doesn't have to be complicated, but not even that you don't have to use any paid service. So the cost is only going to be the electricity and maybe one network request. You're going to see how later. So let me just really show you quickly an example. If I use this search on my site, let's say I'm looking for something important. So for example, I want to find the mention of a banana in all of my posts. How beautiful is this, friends? But let me show you something that is more incredible. So when I open the network tab, and again, I'm just going to pop open the search, and you can see there are 0 network requests. So what is this black magic? And basically, we're going to use this library, which is a lightweight JavaScript text search engine, FlexSearch. So this is going to handle all of the difficult tasks for us. And all of these things are going to be linked in the description, including this post. So you can read this post if you want. You can try this example that you're going to create today. And I also included a link to the repository here, so you have all of this available to you. And at the end, if you're still interested, I'm going to actually go over the pull request for my site where I implemented the search, so I can show you some of these finer details, because we will be here for an hour, right? But as you're actually going to see, I just want to show you the basics of how you can implement this, and you can do it under an hour, trust me. Alright friends, but before we get started, a quick message from our sponsor, myself. So you can support me by becoming a patron, starting low as $1 a month. And also don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for your support. Alright friends, so I'm inside of an empty SvelteKit project, and this actually works for any JavaScript framework where you can create a standalone endpoint, and I'm going to show you why we need to do that. Of course, you can use a standalone server to create an API. So basically the only dependency you need is FlexSearch. You can use npm. I'm going to use pnpm add FlexSearch, and I already have it installed, so I'm going to skip this step and let me just start the development server. So that's going to be basically it. And next, let me show you the project structure. So how I structure this project isn't really important. You can place these files anywhere you want outside the usual SvelteKit conventions for creating routes and endpoints, right? So here inside lib, here you're going to have the logic for search. Here in our routes, we're going to have this standalone endpoint plus server TS, and here are the example posts I have. So let me just quickly show you how this works. So you can find this, of course, in the post or in the repo if you want to follow along exactly, but you might notice something different. This is just clean text, right? You're going to have markdown, which you need to strip, right? So for example, if we go here to this endpoint plus server TS, you can see we're doing a silly thing here. We're importing JSON, and then we're serving this JSON as an endpoint. But of course, in your project documentation, whatever you have, you're going to dynamically import your markdown, and then you're going to strip the markdown. And you can use any npm package for that. So for example, we can go to npm, we can say remove markdown, and then you can see there's a bunch of packages you can use here. But yeah, so now that we have this endpoint, let me just really show you. So this is going to be at search.json. So now we can use this to index our post. And another thing I haven't done here, we're going to pre-render this also. So we can say export cons pre-render true. So when I rebuild this project, right, to Vercel or whatever, then it's just going to do this once, and then it's going to cache it forever. So you don't regenerate this each time you hit this endpoint. This is why we create this standalone endpoint, because otherwise we could also create programmatically a JSON file, but then we would need to write some script to generate that each time, so we can read that from a folder if you want. That's also another option you can do. But yeah, that's basically it for the setup. Alright friends, so next I actually want to quickly show you how FlexSearch works. We're going to see the search is actually the easiest part of this entire thing. The most work we're going to do is going to be highlighting the text that the FlexSearch results return. Alright, so I'm going to go to the root page here. I'm going to close the sidebar, and then I'm just going to create this script tag, and let's just import FlexSearch from FlexSearch. Alright, so let me show you how simple this is actually. So we can create an index, we can say index, and we can say new FlexSearch index, and we can also pass it some properties here. But let me actually show you something first. So now to add things to our index, we're going to use index, and then we're going to say add, and in their documentation they recommended to use numbers for the index. So we're going to say, for example, 0, and then we're going to say hello, and then also let me just copy this over, and we're going to say hi here or whatever else. And basically that's it. This is how you start to create your own index. You can index whatever you want. Alright, so now you can have your results, for example. So you can say const results, and now you can say index, search, and now you can search for something. So for example, let's say if this works, and you're going to see it doesn't, and I'm going to explain why. So we're going to say console log results, and now here, I'm going to open the developer tools, console. You can see we get this empty array back because it couldn't find anything. But if we type in the entire word, hello, it should match. So it's going to return 0, which is our index. So now you can, for example, if you have a lot of posts and you find a match in all of those posts, you can return those posts by the index. And this is how simple it is. I told you, right? But let me actually show you something else. You can pass in some properties here. So we can pass a tokenize method. So we can make this even more awesome. We can provide this forward method. So this is going to match, for example, since we already have hello here. And now when we start typing he, is going to match this entire thing. So you can use tokenize forward. And now let me just show you. Now we can just type he. Let me save it. And now it should also return a result. Let me refresh for good measure. And you can see it returns the right result. How awesome is this? But yeah, that's basically how FlexSearch works. This is everything you need to know about this. And of course, if we have here hello world, just save this, refresh, you're going to see we get back 2 hits because it matched both of these posts based on the index 0 and 1. Alright, so now we understand how FlexSearch works, but I'm actually just going to take this import and let's go to our search.ts file so we can have all of our logic right here. And then we're just going to create a couple of functions. So we're going to have export function create post index. So we're going to pass in our data here, which can be post, but I'm just going to give it any type here. You can, of course, import your post type or whatever else you want. AI, stop bothering me. Okay, so now we can go to export function search post index. And then we're just going to pass in a search term, which is going to be a string. And that's basically going to be it for now. All right, so now we need to store the index and the post. So I can go here, I can say let post index, which is going to be of type FlexSearch index, but of course TypeScript is optional as always. And then we're just going to keep track of posts here. So this is what you're going to query and etc. And let's also complete this type. Thank you. All right, so here we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to say post index, so we're going to assign it here to this post index, but we're just going to do the same thing as before. So we can say FlexSearch index, boom, bam, thank you, ma'am. How easy peasy is this, friends, right? Look at this. Okay, so now we just need to loop over our posts, and you can organize your posts however else you want. You can include tags here, you can do whatever shape you want. It's really not important that you have this exact shape, title, slug, content. This is just something that I made up, right? And I'm going to actually show you how this works. So we can go over this data and we can loop over each. And now I can just say post, and I also want the index because I want to index it by the number. That's the only reason why I'm using index here. And you can see already our AI is trying to help us out, and it actually doesn't look bad, but I'm going to actually cancel this. So first, what do we want to index? So we can say, for example, item, and then you can just say post content, right? But you actually want to index the title and the content. So we can just concatenate them together. So we can just say post title, and I should do this properly. Let me just do it like this. We can actually say post title, and let me actually see if this thing is smart enough. Ah, it was almost smart enough. And it said post content, right? Beautiful. So now we have this item, right? And it actually screwed us over. This is why you shouldn't trust AI, my friends. And you can say post.title, post.content. So now we can index all of this thing, and it's going to be blazing fast. And now we need to index it. We can say post index. And now we're going to say add. So we're going to pass the index, which is going to be 0, 1, 2, and etc. And we're going to pass in the item. That's it. This is how we create the index for our post, for our documentation, whatever. And now we just need to assign this post to data so we can query it, right? So we can say post equals data, and boom, easy peasy lemon squeezy like that, friends. We created a search index for our post. That's right. All right, friends, so let's create the search, and I'm going to scroll up a bit. So the first thing we need to do is we need to escape this search term because we can type in special regex characters like dot or whatever else those crazy characters are. So we basically just need to escape the character and return the escape character. And this is actually where something like AI is incredibly helpful because it's just going to do the work for me. So let's just say escape special regex characters. So if I start typing, let's see if it's smart enough. Come on, AI. Oh my god, it's embarrassing itself. Search term, replace. Oh, there we go. This is the sauce. This is the exact code that I wrote. Of course, don't always trust AI. I already yeeted this code for someone else before, so I know that it's correct when I look at it, right? And you can always, of course, test it. It just looks intimidating, right? But this just replaces this thing and then it returns this as an escaped character. So you don't delete the character because you maybe want to search for a dot, dollar sign, or whatever else. Basically, that's it. It's not intimidating at all. All right, thank you. All right, so now we can actually say const results and we can just do the same thing. So we can say post index since we have it in the upper scope. So now we can say search match. That's it. Thank you. All right, so now I can go here and the only thing left to do is we need to return the results. So now I'm going to say return results and now we can map over them. So remember how I told you that this thing returns the indexes. Okay, so this matches things like index 1, 2, 3, 4, and now we can just filter or map over and return the posts that match. That's how simple, easy peasy lemon squeezy this is, friends. So we can just say results map and then let's just say it gives us the index, right? So now we can use this, we can say posts and we can just map over the post based on the index, right? And TypeScript is complaining because it's obnoxious, but I'm going to say as number. And that's basically it. So now at this point, this is done. The search is done. The hardest part, well, the hardest part is not going to be part, but most of the work is going to be on highlighting the return text, right? So we can actually do this map. So now we get the post back, right? And now you can do whatever you want. The world is your oyster, right? So now we can say map and let's just destructure the slug title and content from this. And now we can do whatever we want based on this content. All right. So now we can return slug title and content. And I'm doing this in a weird way because we're actually going to come back to this code and update it to return the highlighted text. All right, so let's save everything. And the next thing we're going to do, we're actually going to go to our template and see how it works, right? All right, so let's go to our page and now I'm going to yeet everything inside of here. So let's create a script tag again. And now I'm just going to import on mount from Svelte. How beautiful is this? And now I'm going to import, let's see if we can do it like this. We can say lib search. Wouldn't it be easier if the imports were opposite so you don't have to do this weird thing, but whatever. Okay, so we exported create post index and we can search post index. That is basically it. So now here, let's create some piece of state. So now I'm going to create let's search. And people love using their booleans, but I actually love using explicit state. So here we can just say search. By default, it's going to be loading. And I'm just going to use a cheeky type here. So let's see. I'm going to say loading and the other state is going to be ready. So that's basically it. And then I'm going to say let search term, which can be empty by default, but let's just use imagine just so we have something to work with from our post, right? And then here we're going to keep track of the results, so I can say results and which is going to be an empty array. So that's basically it. All right, cool. So now let's use on mount. So when this component mounts, then we're going to do some magic. All right, so now here it comes our endpoint, right? So we actually want to fetch this endpoint and do whatever we want. So that's how beautiful that is. So we can just say const post and we can say await fetch. And now we can just use it relative like this because SvelteKit is going to understand how to resolve this search.json path, right? And then I'm going to say then, so we're going to get the response, and then I'm just going to say response.json. Okay, and don't forget to make this async. Cool. So now if let's just console log out post, so we know that we're not insane. And now when we go here, you can see here we have all of our posts, right? And that's beautiful. All right, quick quiz time. What do we want to do first? I'm going to wait. Of course, oh my god, AI is ruining all of the fun. Of course, first we're going to create the post index. It already knew, right? Like I'm talking to it. So now we're just going to pass it the post. Let's see how it works. So we're going to pass in the post here. Boom, bam, thank you, ma'am. It's going to reassign the post here, right? So that's how it's going to work. So we have this data and boom, now we have it here. Hope that's clear, right? So now we're going to create the post index. And then we're just going to update the state. We're going to say search. What? It's ready. Boom. So now we're in business. Cool. All right. So I also want to update results each time we type search, right? And of course, you don't have to update search that often. You can maybe wait for a user action like enter or whatever. But actually, in this case, we can really afford this in this example because it's blazing fast, right? So what can we do? Well, we're still using Svelte 4 here, but you can probably use an effect in Svelte 5. But I'm just going to use this really simple $sign. So now I'm actually, let me just back up a bit, I'm going to say if search is ready. Only in this case, we're actually going to search the index, right? And it already knows. Come on, AI, you're ruining all of the fun of coding. What is this? Okay, so we're going to say results equals search post index search term. And then this is going to update real time and we're going to see what's up. All right, so now we have to wire up the UI. So now I'm just going to go here and I'm going to say if, so I'm going to say if search is ready. Only in this case, we're going to show something. So I'm just going to create this element search. I already have the styles globally, which you can of course check out in the links if you want. And now we just need to create an input type. Let's see, can I do it like this? Boom, search. All right, how beautiful is this, right? So now we have an input type search, but it's not really important. Let me just make it look prettier. All right, cool. So now we actually need to add a couple of things here. So first we're going to bind this value to the search term. Super easy peasy. Then we're going to add a placeholder, going to be search. Then we're going to turn off autocomplete because it's really obnoxious. So we can just say off. And we're also going to disable spell checking. So we're going to say spell check false. And that's basically going to be it. All right, so now let's actually see if this works. So we can actually do something cheeky here. Let's just use this pre. And then we can say results. So this is one of my favorite snippets. Pre is just going to format things for us. And because we're updating these results here, it should update, right? And let's see, what is it complaining about? Variables on please has an any type. Yes, who cares? Let's just say any. So stop complaining at me. How beautiful is this, friends? All right, so let's save this. And you can already see we have this post. Let me just refresh for good measure. And since this pre is at the top, it's annoying. So let me just move this code here. So we have the input here. And let me just see, where's the input? Where did you go, Mr. Input? Oh, it's here at the center of the screen because I'm using styles which are in the layout. So you can check that out. Okay, so let's see, painting. All right, so in this case, every post has the term painting. So let's search for something imagine. And this is also what every post has, of course. Let's search for sunset. And you can see how beautiful and instant this is. So we can search for joy. Let's search lake. How many posts do you have lake? If we don't search for anything, then it doesn't have anything. But let's also search for something else. Forest, dense, or whatever else you want. All right, so you get the picture right now. And this is implementing the search, right? This is how simple this is. So all of the work is actually going to be returning this text and highlighting it somehow. So that's what we're going to do in the next part. All right, but before we do that, let's actually not use this. Let me just see. I'm going to remove this pre. And we're just going to come here where our input is inside of the search. And I'm going to create this element result. So it looks prettier, right? And now I'm going to say if results, only then we're going to show the results. Let me just show this UL. And then again, let me just create this snippet. And then I'm going to say results as result. And now actually, when we go here, we can just say li, and now we can complete this. All right, so now we can include a link or whatever else you want. And let's see, is it right? It's not, of course. So we're going to say slash. Don't forget the slash. It's really important. Otherwise, if you're on another URL, it might not work, right? So we have to say slash this route, and then we can just say result slug. And that's basically it. And this is actually the cool part. So what we're going to do when we replace this text with a marker, a HTML element, right? We can just render out the HTML here. So we can say, we can use svelte's at HTML, and then we're going to say result.title. So when we return back the HTML in a minute, right? And then let's also include the paragraph, which is going to be the text. And now we're also going to say here at HTML result.content. And that's how easy peasy this is, friends. So you can see already I have default styles, right? So things look absolutely beautiful. So let's look for some search terms: magic, fall, warm, autumn, joy, and etc. So each post has imagine, right? And you can see everything works beautifully. Let me just bump the size up so you can see what's going on. Yeah, spring, whatever. And basically this is it. This is the search done. But of course, let's see how we can highlight the return text. Alright friends, let me show you the game plan so you understand what's going on. So for example, here is our goal, right? So let's say for example that we match this content from the post, hello world. Alright, so now that we have this, so this is what we return, slug title content, boom. So now we can do something with that content, right? We can swap this word with a HTML marker, right? But how do we do that? Well, first inside of this post, we actually have to find the index for that word. So this is going to be this index, right? Maybe it starts here, right? Really, I'm making things up, right? I don't know what actually this index is. But okay, now that we find this index, and imagine if this is a longer paragraph, and then you have some other things like banana here. Okay, so now we take this index, and then we can also take a snippet from this text, right? So we can, based on this index, we can maybe go back 20 characters. We can start here, and then maybe we can go ahead 80 characters. And then we're going to return this snippet. So actually, we're just going to return this as text, and then we're just going to add ... like this. So that's basically how this is going to work. Actually sounds complicated, but it's actually very simple once you see it. Alright, cool. So how are we going to do that? Well, I'm going to create a function, and we don't have to export this because we're only going to use it in this file. We're going to say function get matches. So we're going to pass a couple of things. We're going to pass text, which is going to be a string. We're going to pass in the search term, which is also going to be a string. And we can even specify a limit. As you see here in this example, let me just show you. So we can say, I don't know, forest, nature. So you can see how we get one search result from the post, but maybe you want to return more of these instances, right? And you can also index things by other things. Maybe you have posts, and then you can index things by every heading, right? So maybe you can return this title of the post, and then for every heading inside of that post, maybe you can return search results for that. That is something that the Svelte site does if you want to check that out, right? So that's basically what this is, but of course, you can return this here, and then back in your template, here where you have this content, you can loop over these extra results if you want. But yeah, let me just show you how this works. So first I'm going to go here and I'm going to say regex, and now we have to create a dynamic regex. So for example, if you might be familiar with a regex literal like this, and then we would say something like this at the end. But the problem with this, you can't really pass in a variable here. Like this isn't something that you can use even template literals on. So this would always be the same thing. And in these scenarios, we use a dynamic regex. So that is why we're going to use this funky syntax. We're going to say new regular expression, boom, easy peasy lemon squeezy. Actually, I don't want this. So we can say new regular expression and then search term. And actually I want G for global, and then we're going to pass I, so it's case insensitive, right? And then we want to keep track of the indexes. So this is going to be an empty array. And here, since we have this limit, I'm going to say let match 0. So we're going to increment this inside of our loop. And then we need let match, which is going to be from the while loop. Look at this. It already knows because it slurped up the entire internet, right? And let me just really show you what you're going to use so you don't think I'm super smart or something. Basically, if you look at this on MDN, it's literally the same example that it has here. It creates a dynamic regular expression, and then it does this method executive, and then while this matches, then you can do something, whatever. But yeah, basically it's all on MDN, and this AI just slurps it all up. But we're actually going to modify this a bit. So actually, let me just start typing while, and then let's actually see what it says. Okay, while, let's see, match equals regex.exec text. That's right. And then let's actually, and now I lost it, of course, while I was reading it, right? Let's see if the gods are going to have mercy on me. Okay, null, whatever. We can just go this. So match equals regex exec text isn't equal null, but it's optional, right? And then we also want to tack on and if matches is lower than the limit, of course. Cool. So now what are we going to do? Oh my God, it already knows, it already ruined everything. So it knows that we want to push to the index. So we're going to say indexes push the match index that it returns, right? And then we're going to increment matches. Easy peasy like this, friends. And let me just remove this. This looks like something extra. So yeah, that's basically it. So now we're going to push these indexes where these words occur. So we're going to have index 1, 2, 3, 4, however much you set this limit. But in this case, we only just returned 1. So that's why it just returns the entire post and nothing else, right? But yeah, that's basically it. It's really not that hard as you see. And now we're going to do that logic where we return the excerpt. So what do I mean? Well, we can just return. So now we can map over the indexes. So now we get the index back. And now we can just specify some things. So we're going to have start. So now we can go back 20 characters or however else you want. And look at it. How does it know, right? So let me just really show you. I'm going to autocomplete it. So now we're going to define the start and end. So now instead of 20, let's say that you're going to go ahead 80 characters, right? And then we're going to use text substring, so we're going to take that excerpt text. And what's really beautiful about substring compared to something like slice, if you have a negative index, it's going to be 0, so it's never going to go out of bounds and you're going to get an error, right? So this is really why I love substring in this case. But in this case, actually, we're not just going to return this because that's just the text, right? I'm going to name this const excerpt, I think, excerpt, is that how we type it? Yeah, I guess. So now we have this, and let's just trim any white space that we have. All right, so now we're going to return this as some formatted text, right? So now we can say return, if I spell it right. So let's just return this template literal. All right, so now we're going to have dot 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 at the middle here. We actually want to take this excerpt and we want to replace the match text with a marker, right? So that's something that we're going to create another function for. So let me just create this template literal, and we're going to name this function replace text with marker. And then we're going to pass the excerpt and we're going to pass in the search term. So let's create this function above this. So we can say function, let's see, replace text with marker. Let's see how smart it is. Actually, is it going to complete? Doesn't matter. So we can just go here and let's just pass it some parameters. We can pass the text as string, and then we're going to name this match, which is the search term, but it's not really important. Alright, so this is going to be really simple, just 2 lines of code, I think, and we actually need to do it in a way so it's case insensitive. But the beautiful thing is that you don't have to do anything special. We can just use text replace all, we can get back the match, and then the match that we get back, we can just replace it, so we don't have to do things like 2 lowercase or whatever else and then ruin the results because everything is going to be lowercase, right? Alright, but enough talking, let me just really show you it. So we're going to again create a dynamic regex, so we can say new regex or whatever, and then let's just pass in the match, and then we want the global flag and the case insensitive flag. Alright, so I'm going to show you how simple this is. Alright, so now we're going to say return text, and in this case we want to replace all. Let's actually see if this thing is smart enough. Ah, how beautiful is this, friends? It already knows. So we're going to pass in regex. Let me just complete this. We're going to pass in this regex that we're going to use, then we're going to get back the match, which was case insensitive, right? So this is really how beautiful this works. So now inside of the text that we have, so for example, let me just remind you again, if you're feeling lost. So for example, we have hello world, so we just really pass this to this function, and it says, all right, I should match and replace this text, so it's going to be mark. And this is what we're going to return and get the syntax, not syntax highlighting, but regular text highlighting in our search results. And of course, you maybe notice we're rendering HTML. So if you have any HTML in your markdown, don't forget to strip that out also. And I'm also going to show you that in my pull request, how I've done it. But basically that's it. If you can believe it, right? All of my talking, right? But if you just look at this code, it's really not that intimidating. Of course, when I've done it, it took me a while to figure it out. So I really don't want to pretend here that this was all done in 5 minutes. It took me a while to figure it out, but yeah, that wasn't that really bad, right? So we can save this, and now we should get the excerpt. And remember here, we just have these results, and then we loop over them, and then we output the HTML. Cool. So now if we go back here, and of course nothing is going on because I'm silly, right? Okay, what is the problem? Do you know? What are we doing? Nothing. That's the problem. So we have this awesome get matches. We're not using it anywhere, right? Cool, so this is the part that we want to change because we returned this and now we just need to format it. Silly me, right? Silly goose. Alright, so we can keep the slug, but for the title we can just use the replace text with marker, and then we can just pass in title match. That's it. And what we want to do for the content? Well, we need to do 2 things. We just need to get matches, and then let's see, we just need to pass the content and match, right? Because this is just replacing the title that we return because it's way simpler, right? So we're just going to replace text with marker, but in the case of our content, we actually need to find the indexes for these words, and then we need to replace them, right? So this is going to replace text with marker, and boom, that's it, you're done. So let's actually save this, and now you can see how beautiful this looks like. So this just returns this excerpt, right? We're going back 20 characters, but we're going ahead 80 characters, which you can adjust, of course. So let's just also look for something like stroke, joy, painting, imagine, beautiful, sunset. You can see how fast this is. It just rips through everything. But yeah, that's basically it for the search, I think. And if you're interested in the next part, I'm going to go over the pull request I made for my site to show you some extra things. Alright friends, so let's quickly go over how I implemented search for my site. And as I already told you, the naming and placement of these files is completely irrelevant. So you can see I have all of this search logic inside of this UI/search folder, and I have this endpoint inside of my API/search folder, right? So this really isn't that important. So I'm going to close the sidebar, and the search logic is going to be the same. It's the exact same code that you saw earlier. But let me show you how I prepare the data. So I don't know, a mood struck me here. I was like, I don't need a package, but actually trust me, use a package from NPM. But actually I had a lot of fun creating this, and please don't forget to strip out the tags also if you have them in your Markdown, otherwise you're going to render them. So I replace the tags with these HTML entities. So I have this function strip markdown, I pass the markdown, and then I loop over these patterns, and then I replace the content, and that's basically it. So here's the part I was talking about. You can use Vite and import metaglob to dynamically import your post. Then you can loop over the post. I'm checking here if the front matter from the post is a draft. Then I'm going to return null. Otherwise, I'm going to return title, slug, content. And then I'm going to filter it by passing boolean. So it's going to remove all of those null values. And then I'm going to return the post as JSON and pre-render everything. So that's basically it. And in the component itself, I'm doing some things different. So for the dialog, I'm using Melt UI, so you can ignore all of this junk here. This is just Melt UI, so let me just show you use Melt. And yeah, it's almost the same code. Here's this button. So yeah, of course, this is just a fake input when we open it. Another thing that you can do, for example, my content is 1 meg in size, but maybe you have a lot more content. So you can, instead of doing this on mount, maybe you can just do this when the user clicks on this, just so you don't tax your mobile users and etc. That would be also a nice alternative. And also I'm checking what the platform is. So I'm checking here if platform is Mac Intel, then I'm going to show this special Mac symbol. And how do I know that? Well, if we look here at the code, first I'm going to import this browser from SvelteKit to know that we're in the browser context. Once I know that we're in the browser context, then I can safely use window.navigator.platform, and that's how I know the platform. So for the state, it's really not that different. So for the state, I have idle, load, ready. Search term is the same. Here, keep track of the results, but here is something different that I'm doing. I'm using a web worker. And why am I using a web worker? Well, let me just really show you. I didn't even have a problem with performance, but to make it future-proof, and it actually feels a bit smoother. You wouldn't even be able to see it on the video. You would have to experience this. But let me just really show you. I have a lot of posts, and look how these things rip through them, right? There is like no delay, no jank. But maybe if you have a lot of content, at some point the UI would start to feel janky because you're blocking the main JavaScript thread. And let me just really show you where you can see a worker, not to be confused with service worker. A web worker is just a background tag, so you can run some code in a separate thread, which sounds intimidating, but it's actually really simple. So let me actually show you. If I refresh this, you're going to actually see it here. Here is this special cog sign, search, right? So you're going to see here is this search, and you can also see it inside of the sources. Here is this special cog symbol, right? And I open this, but let me just close it. And yeah, that's basically it. That's what the web worker is. Alright, so how does it work? Well, let me show you. Well, on mount, we're going to move all of that logic inside of a web worker instead. So what are we doing here? We're saying search worker equals new search worker. And we can do that because Vite has this special import for workers. You can name this whatever you want. You can name this banana. But you can see here we have this search worker, question mark worker. So this is a special Vite import. So now we're going to initialize the worker, and then we're going to add an event listener message. We're going to the structure type and payload. So if the type is ready, then we're going to assign the state to ready. Otherwise, if you get the type results, we're going to reassign the results from our worker. And the first thing we do, of course, is just shoot off a message, type load. So let me show you how this works. Here is our worker. So we just import here all of our logic from search. So now the computation happens in the worker, right? And now we can listen for these messages here. So the first message we send is type load. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to fetch the post. We're going to create the post index once, and then we're going to post back message ready. So now when we see if the type is ready, then we're going to assign the state of search to ready. And that's basically it. We also have if type search, then we're going to search our post index, and then we're going to post message type results with this payload, which has the results and the results term. That's basically it. It's really simple like that. So if type is results, then we're just going to reassign it. And to update the UI on our page, again, we're doing the same thing. If you're using Svelte 5, this is probably going to be an effect because side effects, right? So we have search worker, we're going to post a message, type search, and because the search term is here, Svelte knows that it should rerun this each time the search term updates. That's how simple, easy peasy this is, my friends. And also have this extra thing, so we're checking if the search term exists, and if the dialog isn't open, then we're going to clear it. Because you can open this and you can just start typing, and then if you close it, it's going to be cleared. And another user experience thing is on navigate, we want to close the dialog, because I can open this and I can, for example, start typing banana, and I also have great accessibility here. But then when I click on the post, the dialog is going to close. And that's basically it. And the last thing, of course, is a shortcut. So we can use Svelte window, so we can listen for the key down event, and then we can say if E control key or if the meta key is pressed, and then I have this case insensitive searching for E key, if it's lowercase or uppercase. I thought maybe someone can fat finger caps lock on accident, so whatever. Then we're going to prevent the default behavior, because the default behavior when you press Control K is going to do the search inside your browser. If you don't like that, you can just change the shortcut. And here we're going to just toggle the value of the dialog. And that's basically it, friends, I think. In this template, I have some other check here to make sure. And then, as I told you before, you can also loop here if you have more than one results. But in my case, I also just returned one result, so this really doesn't do anything. But yeah, just to make sure, right? And here is just some styles. But yeah, that is basically it. So now we have a beautiful search here that we can use. Alright friends, so that's it, and if you watched this far, I appreciate you. And if you like what you see, don't forget to like and subscribe, and you can also support me by becoming a patron. Thank you for watching, and catch you in the next one. Peace!